Okay, I will never forget this. Gino, I still remember you. I remember, and I had a crush on him too. He called me Constellation Face,
Yeah.
and he literally took a pen and tried to play connect the dots on my face. Gino, I still remember you.
Yeah, and so that could totally change how you feel about your body at a very young age. You start feeling self-conscious. Like I remember my son, even just being more aware, my son is the only redhead in his class. And he's like, I don't like, and freckles. And he's like, I don't like my freckles. I said, why? He goes, well, nobody else has freckles. I'm like, well, that's what makes you so unique and special. And so that's what we're talking about with him, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a big traumatic event, but it can. But the things that people say, the experiences that you have can resonate with your body if you choose to accept them. And then it becomes an agreement, like the four agreements. And then it's inside of you. But you can reprogram those belief systems. You can heal from trauma. You can change your perception about your body anytime.
Absolutely. And that can show up like with your son Anders, he may want to be a little more invisible, right? If he stands out with red hair and freckles, he may want to wear what everyone else is wearing and blend in all the different ways because he feels he stands out. Or I remember it was very common for people to start to dress up kind of gothic and be like hyper visible. Like I am going to control the way you look at me. And I knew girls that would do kind of this like intentional ugliness because they didn't want to get picked on anymore. And they didn't want to have people comment on their looks that they couldn't control. So if they dyed their hair green and painted on weird makeup, they could control what people commented on. And so it can show up in this hypervisibility or this invisibility or this sense of control. Welcome to the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast, where you master your mind and coach your own comeback. You are the hero, you are the guide, and you will learn to architect your life from the inside. I'm your host, Britannia Stowe, joined by my sister and co host, Annika Wilder. Enjoy the show. Annika, I have to be vulnerable and tell our listeners that I almost skipped this week's episode. I was thinking physical self esteem. We don't need to get into that, do we? And I just am so grateful that you questioned me and you said, but Britannia, this was such a huge part of your life and a huge part of your story. Why don't you want to share this? And then you said something else. You said maybe there's a part of you that is stopping yourself from sharing. And I just want to thank you for calling me out. That accountability is amazing. And you're absolutely right. I think there was a part of me that was a little scared to get into physical self esteem because there are still some deep rooted insecurities, even though I've worked so hard to heal those.
Yeah, I'm so excited about talking about this because I think everyone struggles with physical self-esteem, like their body image in some point in their life. I think especially as women. And so this is a really important podcast to support women and men, but I think a lot of this messaging will be for women to understand what physical self-esteem is and understand how to love their body and the how comparison kills your self-esteem. And so I'm super excited to get into it.
Oh, yes, me too. And you're right. It's mostly women that struggle with this, but I know that there are men that struggle with it too. And so we don't want to isolate you from the conversation. So let's define physical self esteem first. It's pretty obvious. It's how you feel about your physical appearance, but also your abilities. This includes attractiveness, physical competence, and health. And it's so important to dig into physical self esteem because it's about building a loving relationship with your body and not avoiding change, but embracing if you choose to want to evolve your body, if you want to gain more muscle, if you want to lose some fat, if you want smoother skin, that's okay. But let's first start by loving our body as is, because true change starts from within inside and does not start on the outside.
And I think you said something actually super important because you emphasize, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but you emphasize self-esteem, physical self-esteem is how you feel about your physical body. It is not your physical body. And a lot of people will, their perception is like how they feel, how they see themselves, but it's not actually reality because everybody sees things differently. Like we could say like I'm overweight. Someone might say that, but but somebody else will say, "Oh, you're super skinny." It's perception. And so it's how you feel about your body is super important. And why this is important is because you can change your perception. You can change how you feel. You might not be able to change the color of the sky, but you might be able to change how you look at it.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me of going into, a hall of mirrors, and you go into one mirror and you look like you have a pear shape, and you look into another mirror and you're super thin, and another mirror and you're super round. Our perception can change that fast. And that is due to external forces. But we also have the ability to change our perception that fast internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always look really good in mirrors at stores, and then I come home and I'm like, this did not look like this.
I think they do that on purpose, though.
Yeah, magical mirrors at stores. So you can't always trust that image. But speaking of image and like your perception of what is beautiful, we talked about this a little bit, off camera, but there's different cultures that perceive beauty in different ways. And
Mhm.
so like I said, you might be perceived as one way in our culture, but perceived a totally different way in another culture. Like in Tonga, I think it's Tonga, they believe that like a bigger stomach means like a woman is a good cook. She likes to eat. She's strong. She's got health in her belly. That is attractive to that culture. Or like those funny, I shouldn't say funny, but in Africa, there's certain tribes in Africa that have those neck things that
Yeah,
elongate.
those rings that stack up.
Yes, and it elongates your neck because they think that long necks are beautiful. So they have these like devices and accessories to create that image because they're seeing that that's beautiful. Or like in China, people out there really like, delicate features and paler skin, and and then America, I think you talk about how America, it's always changing. Like what is beauty in America?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so and this is twofold. One, not only are other countries so different and what they think is beautiful, even within America, if you go from the east to the west, the north, the south, there's going to be different perspectives. But what I find so interesting is in America, it constantly changes. And an example would be in, the 80s, it was really popular to be, really thin and not really have a butt and not really have boobs. And then as time went on, our culture changed, and all of a sudden we want these big hourglass figures, and we want hips and we want boobs, and now I would say that it's a mix. So yes, there's still that desire to have big hips and big boobs, but now we're seeing it's okay to have more of an athletic build, or it's okay to be thinner. But depending on the season, depending on the culture within your neighborhood, you might feel the pressure to go, get a bigger hips or have smaller hips.
Yeah, exactly. It was funny. I was talking to a friend about this person I follow on Instagram. I want to say her name is India something. She is fabulous. She's super creative with her clothes. She's beautiful. She's also like in TV and does some modeling. And I was showing her because I wanted to show my friend all these ideas for clothes. And I was like, look how cute these like clothing combinations are. And I was paying attention to like her craft and her artistic side. And my friend said, wow, she has the perfect body. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I didn't think she had the perfect body. I think every body is beautiful, but it was interesting to hear like what her perception was. And she's very thin. She has like no chest, no curve at all. And my friend was like, she has the perfect body. And I was just like, interesting. So that's what she thinks is beautiful. And she is beautiful. She is. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I think we're all perfect. I wouldn't say that that is the perfect body, but it just kind of, I kind of like tilted my head and was like, huh, okay, that's interesting that that's what you feel.
Right. Well, exactly. And it does vary. And so when you're living in a culture that constantly is shifting or telling you this is the beauty standard, no, this is the beauty standard, that can be so confusing if you don't have a strong sense of physical self esteem. I just want to emphasize if you are chasing a beauty standard, you are leaving yourself behind. We are meant to look different. We do look different. I remember one of the big, trends that I was struggling with was this is a few years ago, but I really wanted a thigh gap. I had big thighs and they always rubbed together and it was super uncomfortable. And I just envied those women who didn't have that, who had smaller thighs. And part of it was how it looked aesthetically, but actually, physically having your thighs rubbed together is not great. And it can be really uncomfortable. And so I really, tried to chase that. And I'll tell you, for years, wanting that, did I get it? No. But the minute that I started to love my body and embrace the shape that I was, my weight naturally shifted, my health changed, and eventually I got stronger, better thighs, and the thigh gap showed up, but I didn't care. I didn't go walking around like, look at my thigh gap, because that was no longer important to me. And so, shifting your perspective and loving your body will actually help you get so much further than trying to chase a certain beauty standard.
Totally. And it's the comparison, because where did you were comparing yourself to other women who didn't have this thigh gap, which you are literally the only person that I've ever heard in my life say thigh gap. I've never heard this before, but you were comparing yourself to other people. So let's talk about comparing and the harms of it.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this a little bit before because we're sisters and we look different. On the screen, you may notice Annika's skin is a little fairer, mine's a little bit tanner. Our shape is different, down to the overall shape of our bodies, but the shape of our eyes or the shape of our chin. And so it doesn't make sense, even for two people who are genetically very close, but we don't look the same. And so it's unfair to even compare us as sisters, but often we're comparing ourselves to complete strangers who have completely different genetics, different backgrounds, different health, have gone through different experiences. Maybe they had kids, maybe they didn't. Maybe they eat a certain, food, or maybe they exercise differently. Like we're constantly comparing ourselves on social media or in our daily lives to this highlight reel. And it's not logical. Like, not only is it dangerous, but it's just not logical. Annika, you had talked about how social media really distorts reality, and mainstream media does too. What are your thoughts on that comparison trap?
Yeah, it's super harmful because there are filters. Like we don't even know, like even this video, like I have it framed nice with my plant and my pictures in the background. What you don't see is my shaker bottle right here. You don't see the pile of papers on the other side of my desk. You don't see the blanket on the floor or my dying plant on the other side of the computer screen. You don't see that I have my shoes off. Like there's so much that you don't see, and it's important to have that understanding that what you see on social media is not reality. It is a small hyper focused frame of a part of reality, and even then it might have filters or edits. I mean, you can, and especially with AI, there are beautiful videos and pictures of women out there that are not real. They are literally AI. And we are comparing ourselves to robots, and it's just not realistic. And I think that this self-esteem and this self-worth and this idea of what beauty is becoming distorted because of AI. Now I use AI, I get it, but there's so much on social media that is harmful to a natural beauty.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you touched on AI because my mind was going there too. And that's where we're going. And it's important to know the difference between reality and a augmented reality and AI, because there's also that middle part. And I know that technology is going to get there too, where augmented reality is not just this in between that we see online, but in life, in real life, people will be able to augment their perceptions and the perceptions of other people. I can't even wrap my head around it. And so it's so important to focus on having that physical self esteem now. But then I have the question, and we've talked about this too, because I've always loved makeup and lashes and dyeing my hair. What if you do want to change yourself? Maybe you love yourself, but you are like me and you love the look of some fake lashes. Is that okay? Does that mean that you have bad physical self esteem if you feel good when you put on makeup or you want to get highlights?
No, it's not bad. I think it all has to do with like the intention. You should love your body unconditionally. The way you look, the hair, the color of your hair. But there's also like I don't wear a lot of makeup. That's my preference. However, I wear funky earrings every single day. I like leopard print. I like to paint my nails sometimes. I just chopped off my hair. I want to have fun. I want to play. I want to show up differently. Sometimes I want to wear big feather earrings or maybe a funny hat. Sometimes I want to wear cowboy boots. These are all accessories to who I am and how I'm expressing myself. And if fake eyelashes is how you express yourself, that is different. If you're making changes to your body because you hate your body, you're not accepting your body, those changes are not actually going to change how you feel.
Yeah, so exactly. So going down to the intention of it. And what about, I don't want to shame anyone for someone who does do cosmetic procedures because I have several friends who have gone and had cosmetic procedures. So no shame there. But, how do you feel about someone who decides to get like Botox versus someone who uses Frownies?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this. The result is the same. The intention is the same. Like for me, I am 34 years old and I have a lot of wrinkles on my forehead and I'm getting these like lines in between my eyes and the crow's feet around my on the sides of my eyes. And I feel that a 34-year-old shouldn't have wrinkles. I feel like for me personally, I am still young enough, and I shouldn't say a 34-year-old shouldn't have wrinkles because it's all preference, right? For me personally, I feel so young inside that I want my face to match how I feel. However, I think Botox is poison. So for me personally, I'm not going to put that in my forehead. I have used Frownies. I have used forehead things. I use massage like devices, but the result is the same. So if you're getting Botox or doing some kind of procedure and I'm doing these funny other natural methods, we're trying essentially to do the same. So there should be no shame in people making the changes that they want to have in order to express how they feel on the inside.
I agree. And know that those aren't your only two options. I mean, in Asian cultures, they talk about the reason why you don't want wrinkles is not just this beauty standard. They talk about feng shui in your face. And so it's actually this belief that you will have better energy alignment if you have less wrinkles on your face. And so this is just one example, but if you want less wrinkles, you could also do cosmetic acupuncture that can really help decrease wrinkles and help blood flow, or using a gua sha tool or a jade roller. Like there are so many options. So don't think you have to go right to the cosmetic procedures or you have to just do Frownies. And Frownies are great. Botox is great. It's all great, but know that you have options and you got to find what's right for you. And that's not just for wrinkles. That's just one example. You don't think you have to jump to the extreme to get what you want. There are all these varying areas. So do your research and be authentic to you and how you want to show up and how you want to express yourself. One of the things I really loved, I read Cameron Diaz's book, The Body Book. I don't know how many years ago now, but I've always loved Cameron Diaz. You have too. What Happens in Vegas is one of our favorites, and Charlie's Angels. And, she's just great. And she actually used to get Botox all the time and has now decided to stop, which I find very interesting. But in her body book, she talks about how, she felt the pressures to do cosmetic procedures, but then she realized that she didn't want to make any permanent decisions, permanent changes for temporary circumstances. So she decided not to get laser hair removal and not to get some of these more concrete and permanent changes just because the guy she was dating maybe liked less hair, or because the beauty standard at the time was to have no wrinkles. And so she had to learn, even in the pressures of Hollywood and that society and culture, how to be authentic to how she wants to show up and how she wants to express herself.
Totally. And I think it was all very individualized. I remember I've always had very thick eyebrows. And I want to say middle school and high school, it was like in the early 2000s, the really thin eyebrows were in style. And I was self-conscious of my big eyebrows and I didn't want to change them, but I felt like I didn't fit in. And I remember our dad saying, well, look at Brooke Shields. Like, she's beautiful and she has very thick eyebrows. And I learned to accept my thick eyebrows. And you guess what's in style right now? Thick eyebrows.
Thick eyebrows. Yeah, I actually wish I had your thick eyebrows. I have to color mine in.
But that's the funny thing about trends is they come and go. And so if you make a permanent change, like if I shaved my eyebrows and tattooed a thin line, it wouldn't be in style now. And so if I wanted to be in style, that permanent change would be really tough to like cover up. I'd have to get like eyebrow hair implants.
Is that a thing? Can you get eyebrow hair implants?
I have no idea. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things that we had talked about too, and I think it's good to be light and to joke about these things because you got to have a good sense of humor. But the truth is, there are some things that happen. There are some traumatic events that do impact the way we look at our bodies and the way our bodies show up for us. There's a book that neither Annika or I have read, but it's on our list. The Body Keeps a Score. And it's about how your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. And there's a few, like the healing code and the emotion code, talk a little bit about that as well. But basically, you think, going to therapy, which is great, will help move you through certain traumatic events in your life. But even if on a conscious level, you've decided, I'm going to let this go, I'm going to move past this, on a subconscious level, your body might be retaining those memories. And so our body will retain the trauma of past experiences. And the way it shows up in future experiences is in an armor, is a different representation. And so there are just a few ways that trauma will build this armor. And so, Annika, I wanted to ask you if there are any that come to mind after a traumatic event. What are some ways that you think our bodies and we start to show up differently?
Well, it could be anything. I mean, trauma doesn't have to be very severe. It can be something like sexual abuse or assault, or it could be like somebody in elementary school said you were fat, or like I know Brittany, they said that you had, what was it, like planets on your face or something.
Okay, I will never forget this. Gino, I still remember you. I remember, and I had a crush on him too. He called me Constellation Face.
Yeah.
And he literally took a pen and tried to play connect the dots on my face. Gino, I still remember you.
Yeah, and so that could totally change how you feel about your body at a very young age. You start feeling self-conscious. Like I remember my son, even just being more aware, my son is the only redhead in his class. And he's like, I don't like, and freckles. And he's like, I don't like my freckles. I said, why? He goes, well, nobody else has freckles. I'm like, well, that's what makes you so unique and special. And so that's what we're talking about with him, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a big traumatic event, but it can. But the things that people say, the experiences that you have can resonate with your body if you choose to accept them. And then it becomes an agreement, like the four agreements. And then it's inside of you. But you can reprogram those belief systems. You can heal from trauma. You can change your perception about your body anytime.
Absolutely. And that can show up like with your son Anders, he may want to be a little more invisible, right? If he stands out with red hair and freckles, he may want to wear what everyone else is wearing and blend in all the different ways because he feels he stands out. Or I remember it was very common for people to start to dress up kind of gothic and be like hyper visible. Like I am going to control the way you look at me. And I knew girls that would do kind of this like intentional ugliness because they didn't want to get picked on anymore. And they didn't want to have people comment on their looks that they couldn't control. So if they dyed their hair green and painted on weird makeup, they could control what people commented on. And so it can show up in this hypervisibility or this invisibility or this sense of control. So if you know that is showing up, again, trauma, we don't always have control on what impacts and imprints onto our body. So if you're noticing that you have this invisibility desire or this hypervisibility or control desire, there are some things that we can do to take us from shame to acceptance and empowerment, and an understanding that this is basically a three-step ladder, but shame starts kind of underground, right? It's not a step up. It actually start very in a hole. And so, understanding how that looks like. And so if you are feeling shame about your body, then you're in survival mode. You're thinking my body is wrong and I need to fix it. And that's how you show up, is invisibility or hyper visibility. We want you to move from shame into acceptance. And that can be a process just in itself. I don't even want you to think about, having to thrive in your body and loving your body. That might feel so out of reach. I know that I used to struggle with that. I couldn't imagine loving my body. I just wanted to stop hating my body. You see, I have this giant scar across my stomach. And I remember I used to say just awful things about my body. And it actually digs in more on the right side of my body than on the left. And across my abdomen, in between like my belly button and my chest, there's a scar. And I used to think, well, if I just didn't have the scar on the right side of my body. And so I started to put a lot of shame, and I would not let people take pictures of me from the right side. Though I will say my left side is still my good side. But I rejected the right side of my body. And because of that, it's so crazy. I can see in pictures, my face was more droopy on the right side. I literally started to deny my body because I had so much shame around it that my physical appearance, based on my perception, my physical appearance started to change. And the idea of loving myself was impossible. So I had to start really slow, going from shame to acceptance and just realizing that it's not going to change. I'm going to have this scar, and starting to reframe that I have this scar because I almost died. I have this scar because it saved my life. I am alive because of this scar. Yeah, maybe I don't love the way it looks, and maybe I don't want to walk around in a cute summer day in a crop top, and that's okay. But it's my body, and I need to start accepting it and loving it. So if you find that you're in this shame space, just go one ladder step up into acceptance. Annika, what do you think about, moving to acceptance, and how do you move from acceptance to the next step?
Well, I think this is really good. Marie Forleo says that you want to make isness your business. So whatever is, just is. And what also comes to my mind was a poem, and I'm not going to recite the poem. I don't have it memorized, but it was a poem I read a long time ago that basically the message was something like this. At 5, I wanted to be 10. At 10, I wanted to be 15 and tall and beautiful and a teenager. At 15, I wanted to be 25 and driving and dating and living on my own. And I wanted to be thinner, bigger, you know, bigger eyebrows or whatever. At 35, I wanted to have my own career, or I wanted to have longer hair, lighter hair, darker hair. At 45, I wanted to be thinner again. I wanted to have tighter skin and no wrinkles at 55. And it goes on all the way up to like 85. And it finally says, at 85, I just put on a purple hat and enjoy my day or something like that. It's like this idea that you're always chasing something. You're always going to want to change something. It's never going to be good enough. Like, like I used to think in my 20s that I was overweight and I wasn't as beautiful. And now when I look at my 20-year-old self, I think now, oh my gosh, I had like super beautiful skin, no wrinkles. I had more hair. And I was thinking, why did I waste so much time like wishing it was different instead of just loving my body? And so having that perspective, hindsight is 2020, but think of yourself as a wrinkly 90-year-old that has two hairs left and you're got a hump on your back because you can't sit up straight and you can barely breathe and your wrinkles all over. Are you going to look back at you now at 20, 30, 40, 50 and say, oh, you're not very attractive. You're not beautiful. No, the 90-year-old's going to be like, stop it. Stop wasting time. You're beautiful. Accept who you are now. And that's why that perception of who you are and what you feel is so important. And remember that if you just accept it and live in your body and be grateful for your body, gratitude will go a long way. If you just show gratitude towards your body, you will perceive yourself as more beautiful.
You're absolutely right. And we need those reminders. We need those reminders that we used to want to be exactly where we are today. And when we're in the future, we're going to look back and be like, dang it, why did I hang on to that a little bit longer? And so that empowerment piece comes from understanding that your body is yours and you get to show up in it every day. What is that John Mayer song where he talks about that girl who's, the skin that she's been living in?
I don't know.
Your body is a wonderland. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm aging myself. But the skin that you've been living in, this is the same skin of that 2-year-old, of that 5-year-old, of that 10-year-old. This is the same skin of the 20-year-old and 30-year-old, and then, 50 and 80-year-old. And so why not love it? Why not cherish the body that you have and the body you've been given? But start with acceptance. You can move into empowerment and thriving. But if you are really struggling with physical self-esteem, I just encourage you to start to accept that this is your body. And if you start to accept your body and love your body will start to love you back.
yeah, your body, your legs are what get you out of bed, literally. Your voice is what communicates with the people that you love. Your fingers are the ones that type your next email at work. Like if you show gratitude and accept this is my body and it is serving me in the way that helps me to have the life that I have, then you will feel so much more love for yourself, and that really will bring empowerment. Acceptance brings empowerment. So Britannia, we're kind of been coaching all along, but how would somebody coach themselves? What are some, like, I don't know, daily practices to help somebody get out of this like body shaming to body accepting?
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of, for me, we talk about the hall of mirrors a little bit. The way I perceive myself is directly correlated to the intention and to the effort that I pour into myself. So if I wake up day in and day out and I have no routines. I have no skincare routine, no exercise routine. I'm not putting any intention into showing up for my body. Then when I look at myself in the mirror, I think I'm ugly. And I noticed if you just do some small things every day, starting just with one, you don't have to do all of these. You will start to really love your body and you'll show up different and you'll see that. It's kind of like posture. When you are slouched over, are you as attractive as someone who pulls their shoulders back and sits up tall and lifts their chin? No. But you also feel better too. And so you will feel better with some small routines. So skincare is a great way to start. So starting with maybe getting a face wash and some moisturizer or body lotion. One of my favorite things to do when I apply lotion on my body is to say affirmations of that area. So I have flat feet. I've never loved my flat feet. And one of the things I did to start to love my feet, because they take me where I go, is I would rub lotion into them and just say, I am thankful for you. Thank you for taking me all the places that I have gone. And I rub lotion into my feet. And then I would do the same thing. I do coconut oil on my belly. And that's before I was pregnant, just to keep the skin tight and to nourish myself. And I would say, I love my scar. I love my belly. I'm so grateful that I have this body. Another great routine is exercise. Move your body, celebrate it. Maybe you're not a big dancer, but dancing, we always talk about how dancing can help boost your energy. Allow yourself to move, celebrate your body in that way. Obviously, diet goes right in line. And I know a lot of people are thinking diet, but what does that have to do with my physical self-esteem? Because what you put inside of you helps you show up, helps nourish your body. You are what you eat. It's not just the physical, it's what you put internally into your body. So allowing yourself to have a routine of drinking water or eating breakfast, these are some ways that you can show up for yourself. And if you do want to put on makeup or lashes, explore with self-expression, not with shame, not because you hate the way that your eyelashes stick out or they're not very thick or you don't like the shape of your face, but because you want to express yourself and you want to show up as yourself. Be like an artist when it comes to applying makeup and clothes and just allow yourself to play. So those are just some daily routines that I think can really help you start to love yourself and show up for yourself and put that intention of I love my body and I'm going to show up for my body because my body, dang it, shows up for me.
And you can't rely on anybody else to give those things. Like it might feel good if somebody says you're beautiful and I love your body. And, it doesn't, if you rely on those external forces, it's only temporary. We've talked about this before. So even giving yourself a hug, like sometimes when I'm feeling like lonely or I like need comfort and my husband's not around, I can't always rely on him. Like if he's at work or like he's working later than me, sometimes I'll go to sleep hugging myself, and that's okay. It's like okay to stroke yourself, to hug yourself, to give yourself love and attention in your body and be present with your body. And that's all part of like that self-care and that self routine.
Yes. That reminds me, one of my little like hacks that I have to share is when I am having a hard time, and it's often when I'm like out in social situations and I'm just not feeling very confident in myself or in my body. Every time I go to the bathroom, I give myself a pep talk. And I tell myself in the stall as I'm going to the bathroom, I am beautiful. I am strong. I am funny. I look cute today. I put some effort into this outfit. I look great. And no one else is telling me those things, but I'm telling me those things. and I take a deep breath before I exit the stall. And I just allow any doubt or insecurity to live back there 5 seconds ago. And I don't have to carry it with me. And sometimes I do this in the mirror, but often there are people coming in and out of the bathroom, and you don't really have the space to do all these affirmations. So allow yourself the space to do these pep talks. But also, when you get home, stand in front of the mirror, get naked, or as close to naked as you're comfortable, because I know that getting naked could also be something you're not ready for. So allowing yourself to get as naked as you can and stand in the mirror and say 3 things, just 3 things that you love about your body physically. And maybe that's hard too. So maybe you're not able to say, I love my shoulders, but you can say, I'm learning to love my shoulders. And find 3 things. And you stay in front of that mirror until you give yourself some love, dang it. And then say, I don't know, 1 or 2 things that you're grateful your body helps you do. Like, I love my arms, not because they're big and strong and cut and lean right now, but because they allow me to carry my children or to carry the groceries up the stairs. So saying something physically about your body, and then saying something about your body that you love, that you're able to show up, the ability that it has, and then smile at yourself and ask your body, what do you need? What do you need to hear from me today? And if you just take a moment and you're still and you listen, your body will tell you. And so be vulnerable, take some time, listen to your body as your body tries to communicate to you. Maybe it's just to have some more compassion. Maybe it's to give it a little more attention. Whatever it is, make sure that you end your little mirror practice with an affirmation, something like, when I love my body loves me back. This has been another episode of the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, subscribe and share the love. And remember the teachings of Lao Tzu. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Until next time, trust yourself. Take the wisdom, take the breath, and take the next step.